don't know how our thing works.
Mary Ann, all set?
I started a recorder, so yes, we can go. I'm recording.
Very good.
I'm
Good
here.
evening. It's 6 p.m., January 27th, 2021. I'd like to open the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for this evening. Point out that this is a virtual/remote meeting being televised live on local channel 18. I want to thank everybody for their patience ahead of time as we still get used to this new format. I'd like to announce that we will take public comment for every hearing at the end of that hearing. There's only one call-in phone line, and that number is 508-539-1400, extension 8585. And because of the one phone line, we want to insist on really a 1-minute time limit for each abutter phone call. Okay, a couple of things that will help the meeting go smoother. I think it's better to raise your hand to be recognized to speak, to mute your phone when others are speaking. That'll certainly help. We're going to forego the Pledge of Allegiance because of the current COVID-19 situation. Jim Rathbottom is absent tonight, and Ron Bond recused himself from the first hearing. So sitting on the first hearing tonight will be our 4 regular board members, as well as member George Ganzenbauer. So Sharon, would you read the first continued hearing?
950 Falmouth Road, Route 28. Petitioners Preservation of Affordable Housing, LLC, request a comprehensive permit under Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, 20-23, and 760 CMR 56.00 to construct 39 low-income housing rental units on property located in an R3 zoning district, Parcel A, Map 93, Parcel 6-0, Parcel B, Map 93, Parcel 7-0, and Parcel C, Map 94, Parcel 7-0. Board to vote to continue this hearing until Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021.
Okay, as we discussed in the last meeting, we have a special meeting on this one. It's Tuesday, February 2nd at 6 o'clock because it's kind of involved, so it's got its own special meeting. So let's see, Scott, can you make a motion on this to continue it to
Sure.
then?
Yep, sure. I'd like to make a motion that we continue 950 Falmouth Road to Tuesday, February 2nd.
Second.
Okay, Jim Gould seconds, so let's see. Ron, you're out. Scott, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
I vote yes. So that's going to be continued.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Good night.
Sharon, would you read the next continued hearing?
Do we need to let any of these people in?
I think that,
That's it, okay. 14 Wags Road, petitioner Aspen Blue LLC requests a modification to a special permit SP 24-26 under 174-25E16 and 174-24K of the zoning bylaws to allow for a change of use and modification to an existing building from a boat storage facility to a marijuana cultivation and manufacturing establishment on property located in an I-1, C1, and R3 zoning districts, map 81, parcel 6, Mashpee, Mass, owner of record, Andrew Conway, trustee of Dry Harbor Realty Trust, continued from the ZBA hearing on December 9th, 2020 at the request of the board.
Okay, and we did get a letter on continue it to, what, February 24th?
Yes.
Well, I don't believe we need to read the two-page letter into it, but we can certainly talk about this on the 24th, this particular letter. So, let's see, Ron, are you in on this one?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so Ron's in, we got the regular crew now. So Ron, would you make a motion to continue this till February 24th?
Certainly. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the applicant's petitioner, backslash applicant, Aspen Blue LLC of 14 Wags Road, request for an extension until February 24th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, Jim Gould seconds. Ron, how do you vote?
Yes.
Scott?
Yep, yep.
Bill?
Yes.
Jim Gould?
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay, thank you. That will be continued till February 24th. Okay. So Sharon, we have two coming up right now. So would you read the next two continued hearings? And I believe we have some paperwork on that also for a continuance.
Okay. 190 Monomoskoye Road, owner Kevin Care requests a variance under 174-31 of the zoning bylaws to vary the front setback, lot size, and frontage requirements to allow for the construction of a single-family residence on property located in an R3 zoning district, map 114, parcel 41A, Mashpee, Mass. Continued from the ZBA hearing on January 13th, 2020, at the request of the attorney. 190 Monomoskoye Road, owner Kevin Care requests a variance under 174-33 of the zoning bylaws to vary the frontage, lot size, and front side setbacks requirements to allow for the construction of a single-family residence on property located in an R3 zoning district, map 114, parcel 41A, Mashpee, Mass. Continued from the ZBA hearing on January 13th, 2020, at the request of the attorney.
Okay, let's see. Scott is out on this, so we're gonna have Sharon, they're also gonna be in on this one.
Okay.
I believe we have a letter from Attorney Corain dated January 26th. Sharon, can you read that letter?
Yep.
I can ask Kevin what he wants. This one actually might be better.
Before I read it, Kevin, would you like the 10th or the 24th? The 10th probably is better on our end.
Okay, the 10th is fine.
Okay. Okay. This is a letter regarding to Jonathan Furbish, Chairman of the Board of Appeals, in regards to Kevin Care, 190 Monomoskoye Road, application for a variance. Dear Mr. It's dated January 26, 2021. Dear Mr. Furbish, as you know, my office represents the above referenced applicant, Kevin Care, the petitioner on property situated at 190 Monomoskoye Road, Mashpee, Massachusetts. The public hearing was scheduled for January 27, 2021, and it is hereby requested that the hearing be continued until February 10th. 2021. Thank you in anticipation of your cooperation in this regard. Very truly yours, Kevin M. Corain.
Hey, Ron, would you make a motion on this, on both of them?
Do you want two separate motions?
Why not?
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we accept the applicant/owner Kevin Care's request for an extension for his request for a variance on 190 Monomoskoye Road under section 174-31.
And it's till February 10th, correct?
Correct. I believe I said that.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Hey, Jim Gould seconds. Ron, how do you vote?
Yes.
Scott is out on this one, and Sharon's in. Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Are we missing anybody? Jim?
Me.
Jim, how do
Can
you
I
vote?
vote yes too?
Hey,
Can I vote yes too?
Ron, would you make
Feel
the
free,
second?
Jim.
I would love to make a second motion. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the owner slash applicant Kevin Care's request for a variance extension to February 10th. That's at 190 Monument Square Road under section 174-33.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Hey, Jim, I'm gonna start with you. How do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ron, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay, so those
Thank you.
are continued till the 10th.
Thank you.
Okay,
Do you need anyone
on to
else?
page 2. Okay, Bill is out on the next hearing, so
Correct.
let's see, why don't we have, Sharon, why don't you come back in on this one?
Okay.
So Sharon, would you read the next continued hearing?
228 Waiting Place Road, petitioner Ephraim Aprarium, I apologize, requests a special permit under 174-17.1 of the zoning law bylaws to raise and replace an existing non-conforming single-family residence with a new code-compliant structure on property located in an R3 zoning district in Papaneset Overlay District, map 112, parcel 59, Mashpee, Mass, owners of record, Frederick W. Blythe and Melissa P. Phillips. Continued from ZBA hearing on January 13th, 2021, at the request of the attorney.
I'll second that one too. Second.
Okay, well, go ahead, Kevin, you can present.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If the board, recalls, we were here a couple of weeks ago with this presentation for a raise and replace project at 228 Waiting Place under 174-17.1. At that time, Attorney Wall, representing the abutter, raised a concern relative to the proximity of the structure to the property line and raised an issue that the measurement was being taken from a access platform and stairway, and thought that that was incorrect. And also, we have a shower on the backside of that building that also encroaches. But be that as it may, as a result of the comments that were made at the hearing, we went back to the site engineer and the architect and revised the plans. We revised the plans so that the building now will conform to that side yard setback. It will be set 15.5 feet from that common property line with, I believe, the property at 226, if I'm not mistaken. So I would point out, therefore, that with the exception of the front yard setback, which is 24.5 feet from Waiting Place Road, which 25 being the requirement, that the building that is being proposed conforms to all applicable zoning criteria. A couple of other things that were mentioned. Attorney Wall was kind enough to send me copies of photographs that submitted to the board. And quite frankly, after looking at those photographs, I had to go today to revisit the property to determine whether or not some kind of a structure had been built that would preclude other views from this particular property. And I did submit the photographs that I took today to the board, which demonstrates clearly that if one continues to travel along the horizon to the south and to the southeast, or I guess southwest and west, the property at 226 continues to have substantial views of Nantucket Sound, notwithstanding that there are trees that are on the adjacent lot between the property at 226 and Nantucket Sound. I would also point out to the board that the arguments that have been raised by the abutter at 226 are really not much different than any other abutter who does not have property sitting on the shoreline, but has property one lot or two lots or so removed from the shoreline, whose views are and would be impacted by development along the shoreline. And we've seen that in many circumstances where there is a property between a lot and a shoreline, and the owner of the shoreline lot comes along and decides they want to raise and replace a structure along that shoreline. So I suggest that the arguments being raised here are really not much different than the arguments that are raised in all of those cases. And I don't believe that view is an appropriate consideration under the Mashpee zoning bylaw in regard to the grant of zoning relief. There are other issues raised relative to light and air. I don't think that those are particularly applicable in this particular case. I think that the trees on the adjacent lot that appears to be public land, mature trees, are just as likely to create shadows on this property, the abutter's property, as this dwelling would. I would also point out that probably, I bet it goes back 30 or more years. The Pompanesett Association proposed changes to the zoning bylaws that resulted in a reduction in the height of buildings that are constructed in this Pompanesett overlay district. In fact, any other district in town, you can build a building that's 35 feet high, but in the Pompanesett overlay district, they lobbied for and secured approval of a 30-foot high height restriction. And I suspect that's largely because of the differences in buildings that existed in the Pompanesett area and the trend that was taking place in the Pompanesett overlay district of larger homes being built in that area. So they did seek to reduce the height. And I would point out to the board that the building we're proposing here conforms to that 30-foot height restriction. Let's see. As I pointed out to the board when we were here the last time, the location of this building is really situated in about the only location that you could build a structure on this lot because of the setback criteria from the street, from the sideline, and due to the coastal resource areas, the coastal bank, and the coastal beach, which of course require that 50-foot setback criteria. And we have located the building so we don't require any variance relief from those requirements. So the building is really located in essentially about the only quadrant of this lot that it could be located in. I would point out to the board, other than the fact that we are slightly 0.5 of a foot beyond what's allowed under the zoning bylaw. That was a non-conforming condition that existed previously. In all other respects, the building conforms to current zoning. I don't believe that we are creating any condition with the new construction that is substantially more detrimental than the existing conditions on site. I would point out that the Conservation Commission has approved this project and issued the appropriate order of conditions, and the Board of Health has indicated in previous correspondence to the board that the septic system on site is sufficient to accommodate 2 bedrooms in this particular location. So with that, I really don't have anything more to add to the board. We reduced slightly the size of the building so we could meet that 15-foot setback on the common property line. And other than that, the plans are essentially the same as we originally submitted.
Okay, Kevin, one quick question for you. What is the existing setback from Wading Place Road?
Let's see. existing front yard setback is, 24.5, and we're going to 24.4.
Okay. And what's the setback requirement in the Pompanesett Overlay District on, front yard to the street, I should say?
25 feet.
Okay. So you're by what, a couple of inches?
6/10 of a foot.
Sorry?
6/10 of a foot. Whatever that is. I'll leave
Okay.
that up to the engineers to figure that one out.
Okay.
And our lot coverage is still at, our lot coverage is at 12.7%, so we're still significantly below the 25% lot coverage that is allowed in this district.
Okay, I don't have any questions or comments or concerns with this, but we have, Brian Wall that does want to speak on this, and we have some letters to read in. But before we get to that, why don't we go around the room and, let's see, the regular 5 board members are gonna be on this. So let me start with Ron. Do you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything?
Actually, I see Scott with his hands up, Jonathan. I'd like to hear what Scott has to say, if that's okay with you.
Sure. Scott, go ahead.
Thanks, Ron. My only concern last time, which was addressed by Attorney Corain, was the setback to that step. And it looks like they're gonna go back to where the existing foundation was, but can we see that on do we have a site plan showing that? I haven't seen anything. And I'm looking at my email, I haven't seen anything.
We submitted a revised plan showing that the new structure will be 15.5 feet from that property line.
I just wanted to see it because, existing and the new, I don't know if it's emailed to us, I don't see, I'm looking at my computer, I couldn't find it.
That's it?
I think that's the older one.
You make it bigger, Sharon?
That's it.
Yeah, hang on.
I think I see the deed. Yeah, I think that's the latest one,
This is
yeah.
the latest one. This is the latest one.
Yeah, I wanna see the side setback on the bottom there, yeah.
15.5.
So that's the proposed, what's the existing, is it marked on there what the existing setback is? Do we have the existing drawing?
Yeah, but it's
I
still
think
within
16.2,
sideline, Scott. The setback in
and
Pompanesett,
that's the side there, is it the 16.2? That's the one, that was the side that had the step.
I don't see the original one.
I mean, it's beyond the 15-foot setback, so we're fine, so I really guess I don't need to see the existing.
right, it's a moot point.
Yeah, all right, never mind, yeah, because it's over the 15, as long as they change that, then I'm very content. But that's what my concerns were last time to now. I think they did a nice job adjusting for it.
Okay,
This
Ron,
is
Ron,
Tim Holmes and McGrath. I can actually answer that and give you the exact number if you're looking for it.
I think it's actually irrelevant now, because you're over the 15 feet, so I don't think it's an issue.
Yeah, it existed at 15.3 and we're 15.5 proposed.
Oh, why am I seeing 16? I thought that step was on, it's on that side, it's still over the 15.
Correct.
I thought that step was on the, where it says 16 too, maybe it was the other side, I thought it was on that side. Where was the step in the shower?
That was over.
On the back
It was,
side.
it was on the back side of budding, 226.
Okay, well, they fixed it, so I'm good. We don't need to dwell on this anymore. Both sides setbacks are good, and they addressed it, so I'm happy.
okay, Ron, to you.
I'm all set, just waiting to hear from others.
Okay, Sharon, do you have any comments?
Not at this point.
George?
No,
Jim Gould?
none.
Okay, Bill is out on this. And let's see, concerns before we read in some letters? Okay, Sharon, would you read one of the first letters here?
Okay, I have one from Barbara Riley of 4 Jeep Place, dated January 13th, 2021. Dear Mr. Chairman and members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, I am writing to express my concern and disappointment at the request of a special permit for the proposed structure on 228 Wading Place. This is my official request for the Mashpee Zoning Board of Appeals to deny a special permit for this proposed structure. I am not against building, quite the opposite, and I am for responsible building. Every owner should be able to sell their property, and I support Freddie Blythe in doing so. Every owner should be able to build. That is their right. Builders should be able to be hired to build. But we taxpayers have to put our trust in the members of town government and governing bodies such as the Mashpee Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals to represent all of us and look out for what's good for the community and those who pay taxes here and live here. What you do impacts our daily lives and the values of our homes. What you have before you tonight in the 228 Wading Place Road special permit hearing is completely irresponsible, absolutely ludicrous. How can anyone on the planning board, zoning board of appeals seriously think that replacing a 672 square foot summer cottage and a 200 square foot porch with a 5,698 square foot structure that also has an enclosed garage in the floodplain, a 653% increase, and keep a 2-bedroom septic? Should that size home really have the same size setback? And let's also talk about the height. Maximum building height footnote of the 174-31 states that height shall be measured from the average original grade of the land adjacent to the foundation line of any proposed structure. It exempts chimneys in traditional widow's walks up to 100 square feet in area. Footnote 18 states the maximum height in Pompanesett Overlay District shall be 30 feet, subject to footnote 4 of this table. The proposed plan of 228 Wading Place has a height of 40 feet 8 inches. That's egregious. We're counting on egregious. We're counting on you to serve the greater good. We are in crisis that what's happening to our water, a result of nitrogen loading from improper septics and overbuilding. Our land can't handle anymore. Why would anyone think this structure is, one, what they say it is, and two, a smart idea? Please stand up for those of us who follow the rules, those of us who need you to do your duty, to be responsible in what you approve and do not approve. We are counting on you to make decisions that protect our community and our precious ocean waters. Please, I beg you, do not approve this request for a special permit. Thank you, Barbara Riley.
Well, Sharon should have just noted that she's not a direct abutter.
No, she is not.
Appreciate her letter, but she's not a direct abutter.
She's not a direct abutter.
Matter of fact, she's a direct abutter of one that's coming up on Jeep Place that she did not comment on. So that's kind of curious.
The facts are incorrect as well.
So also, I would like to point out one thing, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong. The average grade on this property is, what, 10.88 above sea level? And the total height being 40.8, so if you subtract it, it's less than 30 feet, is that correct?
I believe the
John, the engineer's there. The engineer's here.
the engineer is here, and the architect's plans show 30 feet.
Okay. All right, so we've got another letter from the Andrews family. I'll read this one. Okay, it's dated January 12th, 2021, regarding special permit for 228 Waiting Place Road. It's from the Andrews Family Trust of 226 Waiting Place Road, the abutters. For 71 years, our family has owned the property at 226 Waiting Place. Our grandfather, Ross Andrew Sr., 226 Waiting Place Road, and his brother, Norman Andrew, 228 Waiting Place Road, bought these adjoining lots back in 1949 and built their modest beach cottages with beautiful views and bay views. The cottages were a summer retreat for both families and a place to enjoy the outdoors and the surrounding beaches and nature. There is no need for the customary amenities found in a primary residence, which continues to be part of its charm to this day. Over the years, this modest beach house still remains a place to unwind, unplug, and enjoy the company of those around us. As time has passed over the years, cottages were passed on from generation to generation, and with this came the change to multi-million-dollar homes being built on modest cottages, as modest cottages were discarded. Homes that were less than 100 years old were demolished in place of newer and bigger homes, which have completely changed the character of the neighborhoods. The current home is 900 square feet and is being replaced by a structure 5 times its size. The new home will include 5 toilets, 2 bathrooms, 2 showers, 7 bathrooms, bathroom sinks, 2 dishwashers, 2 large AC units, and an ice machine. This home will be massive in comparison to the existing cottage and its relation to the other homes in the neighborhood, including our cottage. Imagine being on the beach now and listening to the hum of 2 large outdoor air conditioning units proposed for 228 Waiting Place Road. The impact of the proposed product more detrimental to the neighbors and decreases our property values. And while the original site plans show a 3rd floor attic, the plans now show that space as a loft and family room with an entrance to a rooftop terrace. It is clear to see that this area will be used for sleeping. Thus, the 2-bedroom plus office that is proposed in actuality is 4 bedrooms. The size and addition of bedrooms will allow the proposed house to be used in a manner much more intense than the 1-bedroom cottage that currently exists on the property. As a direct abutter to this proposed project, we will be adversely affected by approval of a special permit, and there will be a substantial diminishment of our property value, air, and light. We respectfully request that you do not approve this special permit. And again, this is from the Andrew Family Trust, 226 Waiting Place Road. Do we have any other letters before we turn it
I think
over?
there's one more from Glenn McCarthy.
Okay, can you read that?
Yeah, I can read it. I have it on my computer. Mashpee zoning, to the Mashpee zoning board, 228 Waiting Place Road, special permit, Glenn McCarthy, 16 Jeep Place, not a direct abutter again. Dear Mr. Chairman, Pompanesett Beach and Pompanesett Bay are experiencing a water pollution crisis, which has been well documented and recognized by the town of Mashpee. The approval by the zoning board of appeals of the application to redevelop 228 Waiting Place Road as submitted will contribute to worsening this pollution, further degrading our environment and resulting in ending property values, thus creating an outcome that is substantially more detrimental than exists today for residents of the Papaneset area. The proposed development plans call for a massive increase in the size of the structure, including an expansion of the existing footprint. The plans as submitted propose to replace a 672 square foot cottage and 200 square foot porch with a 4,019 square foot house with attached 1,679 square feet of other structures. I don't know what that is, including an enclosed garage in the floodplain for a total of 5,698 square feet of built space as an increase of 653%. This 653% expansion is supposed to be done while keeping the existing two-bedroom septic system. A reasonable person could conclude that the proposed structure will be used as a 3 or 4 bedroom house, if not with this owner, then at some point in the near future. The significant increase in the number of toilets, sinks, showers, bathtubs, dishwashers of the proposed structure can be reasonably expected to output significantly more than the current structure. The increased discharge of wastewater will be directly lead to the increase of water pollution in Papaneset Bay and Papaneset Beach. Furthermore, the applicant has stated that the existing septic system is a Title V system. However, according to the notice of intent to sue delivered to the town of Mashpee September 16, 2020 by the Conservation Law Foundation, the existing septic system can be reasonably assumed to in fact not be a compliant Title V system. Title V itself prohibits the direct or indirect discharge of fluent to surface waters, yet the existing septic system does exactly that. Calling into question the claim that the existing system is Title V compliant system. As a resident of Papaneset, I will be adversely affected by approval of the special permit, as it will increase the pollution of the waters that abut my deeded beach rights, thereby reducing the value of my home, resulting in the outcome that is substantially more detrimental than exists today. The appropriate decision for the residents of Papaneset and all the citizens of Mashpee who are liable to fund the cleanup of the town's water pollution is to not approve this special permit. Thank you, Glenn.
All right, Sharon, would you read conservation comments and then Board of Health comments?
Okay. Conservation, 228 Waiting Place Road. This project has been approved by the commission. Board of Health, 228 Waiting Place Road. Septic system has passed inspection for the use of an existing 2-bedroom septic. Floor plans were reviewed and depict 2 bedrooms. The new dwelling is showing 14 feet from the proposed crawl space. The required setbacks for the soil absorption system to this crawl space is 20 feet. A variance is required by the Board of Health per Title V. A rodent control inspection is required to be performed by an agent of the Board of Health, and an asbestos inspection must be performed by a private asbestos inspector as part of the demolition checklist. The demolition checklist shall be completed prior to demo permit sign-off.
Okay, Kevin, would you like to comment on the Board of Health and their setback for the crawl space?
This is Tim from Holmes and McGrath. I can actually comment to that. The building's actually built on piles, so I'm not sure if the Board of Health agent who reviewed it realized that, but there is no crawl space. The entire building's on piles because it's in a velocity zone, so the setback to the piles is 10 feet. So it actually meets that, and I will talk with Mr. Harrington at the appropriate time when this project moves forward for a building permit, if it's fortunate to approve it tonight.
Yep. Sharon, no matter what, updated comments from Board of Health on this.
Is this the update?
Yeah, actually, so when we, Ron, when we make the motion, make sure you include that about the Board of Health. All right, so let's continue on this. Why don't we go, from anyone before we turn it over to Attorney Wall? Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, I represent the direct abutter, the Andrew Family Trust, at 226 Waiting Place Road. I have submitted a letter, some photographs, and my client, as you know, submitted a letter. She's actually, a representative from the family is on the phone and would like to say something to the chair after I conclude. But since I've submitted all that material, I'm going to be very brief. Two arguments to make. One is we still contend that this project requires a variance. The air conditioning units and the generator, we presume, are going to be situated on a concrete platform, and your definition structure says a combination of materials on a platform or the like, and we believe that these structures are inside the setback and create a new nonconformity requiring a variance. The second argument has to do with the substantially more detrimental test. Currently, as you've heard from the letters and other presentations, there's a rather small, modest cottage on the subject property that is being proposed to be torn down and replaced with a very significantly larger structure. My client contends that that larger structure will overwhelm their property and their own modest structure. The applicant has taken the position that the new structure conforms to zoning requirements either directly in the sense of absolute compliance, or that they do not create new nonconformities. And I think the argument is that therefore the structure is not substantially more detrimental. We would respectfully disagree. If merely showing that the proposed structure conforms to current zoning requirements is all that is required, it would nullify from your bylaw the requirement that the board determine that the proposed structure is not substantially more detrimental. When an applicant needs a special permit, it's a case-by-case analysis where the board needs to look at the neighborhood and the existing structure that's being torn down, and then make that determination that what's being proposed is not substantially more detrimental. We believe there are two factors at work here that make this particular project substantially more detrimental. One of which was mentioned at length by Attorney Corain, that the topography and the wetlands on this property are pushing the development towards the property line with my client. And the second is that it's in a floodplain, and therefore it requires the structure to be elevated on piles. And the applicant has taken the position, and I concede that it's stamped by an engineer and an architect, that it complies with the 30-foot requirement. But notwithstanding that, there are parts of this structure that will be actually 40 feet high. And here's basically the rub that comes down from my client's perspective. From my client's property currently, when they look over to this property, they are looking at the side of a house that is 28 feet long, 1.5 stories high. If this project is allowed, that will be twice as long. It will be 56 feet long, and it will be more than 30 feet high. That will adversely affect their access to light, to air, and also one of the things that the zoning bylaw protects is density. And this increase in height so close to the property line is going to increase the density. And for those reasons, we would ask the board to look at this very carefully and come to the conclusion that this project is simply too big for the current location where it is, and it's substantially more detrimental. Having said that, Mr. Furbush, if you would recognize my client, Beth Andrew Barry, she knows that she needs to be brief, but she is on the meeting and has asked to address the chair.
Go ahead. Yep.
Hang on, I got her.
Hello?
She might be, it says connecting to audio, she might need to be let into the meeting.
I let her in, but she might not know to call the phone.
You got a call?
No, we did talk about that. She knows the number. I will make sure that she is aware of it right now.
We're going to hold it on the screen. Sharon, hold it up. So
And
she
I
can,
know it was on the meeting. I'll send her an email right now.
Okay. I think she's doing it now. She disconnected her audio.
Oh, good. Beth, are you on?
Hello? Can you hear me?
We have,
Hi, is this Beth?
Yes, this is Beth.
Hi, I'm John Furbush. I'm the chairman of the zoning board. Attorney Wall has just presented in the end, let you in, and you can have your say if you could keep it brief, couple of minutes or less if you would. So go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Again, my name is Beth Andrew Berry, and I represent the family of 226 Waiting Place Road, on the property, where the abutters to 228 Waiting Place Road. For 71 years, our family has owned this property, and we've been paying taxes to the town of Mashpee, and we have been good stewards of this land. The current house at 228 Waiting Place Road is approximately 28 feet wide and going to be replaced by a proposed structure twice its size, 56 feet wide. And, you know, last weekend we took a ride up to the Cape and saw the stakes out in the property. And when you look from our porch, which is 11 feet high, this house is going to tower over our property. It's 40.68 feet high if you take the average grade of 10.68 and add it to the 30-foot structure, which is 4 to 5 times larger than the existing structure. This will be substantially detrimental to us. The increased height and width of the proposed home will really substantially limit the air and light that comes into our property. And really what we'll be looking at, and no one's really addressed this, but the site plan shows a large fence along the property line. There is no measurement to how tall or big this fence is. And then there's also reference to these large trees that are going to be planted around the air conditioning and generator units. So again, not only is the house going to block our light and air, but this fence, however high this fence is, I don't know if it's a fence so they don't have to look at us, is going to be another structure that nobody's really brought up. And again, you know, our property's value, we're currently taxed, and I know this isn't part of your regulations, but our property is currently taxed as an ocean view. But once the structure goes up and our view is gone, we will be paying taxes for an ocean view, and we won't have an ocean view. And even though Mr. Corain talked about to the right of our property, you can see the horizon of Nantucket Sound, you can see it in the winter, but in the summer, when you're at the beach and the leaves are on the trees, you're not going to see any horizon from the right of our property. And again, as other people have mentioned, taking a house that's 4 to 5 times larger on the same septic that exists without requiring a variance from the Board of Health, I just don't understand how a 2-bedroom home with 1 bathroom going to this large structure with 5 bathrooms, the septic system can not require a variance. And just in closing, I mean, each of you that are on this zoning board, you have the full and sole discretion to not approve this project if it is substantially detrimental to an abutter. And even if all the requirements are met for the special permit. And so we're asking you to consider all of the regulations, regardless of your individual or collective agendas. And this proposed oversized house will be built with, you know, it's going to block our air, it's going to block our light, and it's going to diminish our property value. And we have lived at that house for 71 years, and we have paid taxes, and it really feels like everybody on this zoning board that I'm looking at right now on this call, that you don't really care about us. Even though we have paid property taxes and lived there for 71 years, it feels like you really just don't care. But I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm not going to comment on whether we care or not. We're all volunteers here.
I do have a couple of comments, Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Go ahead.
One, I do suggest that the Conservation Commission has indicated that the project is appropriately conditioned to protect the wetland resource areas, and so I would suggest that too contributes to the fact that what's being proposed is not substantially more detrimental. The bylaw doesn't say whether or not it's substantially more detrimental to a neighbor. The bylaw just says that it's substantially more detrimental than the existing conditions. The existing building is a dump, and the land upon which it sits is taxed at valued at like $1.4 million or something in that respect. So it's a fantasy for anyone to believe that that building is going to sit there and nobody's ever going to do anything with it. It's going to be a two-story structure, no matter how you look at it, because the limited area on that lot that is available for development. So there's going to be 2 stories, and it's going to comply with the 30-foot height restriction, and the 30-foot high trees that are on the adjacent lot will serve just as much to shadow the existing dwelling as this building may or may not have in terms of its impact. The Board of Health has indicated, has concluded that it's a 2-bedroom structure. The plans that you have before you show it as a 2-bedroom structure, and the engineer will address the concerns relative to any required variance from the Board of Health. The one other thing I'd like to point out is this property, I think as Brian had indicated the last time we were here, both properties were owned by the Andrews family. The Andrews family, in the sale of this lot to Mr. Blight years ago, could have very easily conditioned or restricted development on this particular lot. They could have said, we want no building on the lot more than X number of square feet. We want no building on the lot more than 1 story high. But they didn't. They did not. The brother who owned the lot, or whatever the relationship was, did not require that the other family member restrict the use of the property when they sold it. So I'd suggest to the board that what we're proposing it's bigger. No question it's bigger. But it's no different than many of the other structures that are being built in this Pompanesett Overlay District on lots that are much smaller than the lot that we have in question here. So I would ask the board to act favorably upon the request.
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
Once again, as one board member, I feel they've done everything that they're supposed to do by the bylaw, that the house meets all the requirements of the bylaw. We had a concern on one side, they moved the house back. The only thing I've asked, because I personally don't think the AC sitting raised up because of the flood zone situation is a structure. I guess you could say it's a structure, but it's no different than a step. We don't count that because it's not supporting a roof above or something like that. But could they move the AC to a different side of the house, so it's not in the setback? Is that a possibility?
This is Greg Cerunian from Rescom Architectural. Those units are placed there purposely because it puts them in the AE flood zone and out of the VE flood zone. And grading there is above the requirement, so they're not going to be raised on any platform. In fact, currently there's an AC condenser right in that corner of the existing home.
Correct. Then I'm good with that. I mean, I don't think that's a setback issue then that was brought up about the AC.
There's one other thing that I would like to point out. I had asked my client when Attorney Wall had raised issues about noise and the like from the compressors or whatever, air conditioning units or whatever were located on the building. I had asked my client to include some plantings around those particular facilities to provide a buffer both from a view and a noise point of view. So now it's being suggested that we're doing this to block people's views. That is not what we're doing. We're trying to take a positive step to try to protect the abutter from any noise or potential view.
Okay, Scott?
I don't think he's required to, the new owner, but if he's willing to spend a few more dollars, it might be similar to what it would cost with planting. You can do what's called an ultra-quiet compressor. They're a little larger, but they're much quieter. It's just, I don't think he's required to do it, but something he might offer the neighbor, be neighborly, I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay. I have a question for Dave Morris. Dave, do you consider the air conditioners a structure and need a variance?
Well, I'm looking at it right now, and where they sit, they seem to be on zone X, in between the, flood zones, so they would be right on the ground, and like I
The
said, I
architect
wouldn't,
just said that, the architect said they're gonna be out of that zone, they'll be on the ground, they're not gonna be on a structure.
yeah, so, yeah, wouldn't
It's not an
consider
issue.
them to be part of the setback.
In my opinion, it's not an issue.
Yeah, I just wanted to get Dave's opinion on it too.
So they
Okay,
look
I
like,
apologize.
Where
Don't
they
be
are-
asking Dave.
where they're proposed, it looks like they can be right on the ground, you know, on a,
Okay.
on a
Any more
small pad.
comments before we see if there's anybody waiting on the phones?
No one's waiting.
No one's waiting. Okay.
John, can you hear me?
Yeah, who's on? Who's that? Hello?
Sound like Bill.
Sounded like Bill.
Yeah, well, Bill stepped off the
He stepped
Sharon.
down, so.
All right, so without any further ado, Ron, would you like to make a motion on this?
Yes, I would. I'd like to make a motion that we issue a special permit to Epremian of 228 Wake Place Road under section 174.17.1 of the zoning bylaw to raise your existing non-conforming single-family residence with a new code compliant structure and property located in R3 zoning district and the Pompanesett overlay district, map 112, parcel 59, Mashpee, Mass. Owners of record Frederick W. Blythe and Melissa P. Phillips. The following conditions. 1, the board has determined the applicant meets all conditions of a special permit under Mass General Laws 48, Section 9. 2, site plan, proposed dwelling prepared for Ephraim and Premium for lot 5E and B, number 228, Waiting Place Road, Mashpee, Mass. Scale 1 inch equals 20 feet. Date, October 19, 2020. Drawn by PJR, LAC, and TMF. Job number 220163, drawing number 8-2-37A, sheet 1 of 1. Homes prepared by Holmes and McGrath, Inc. Revision 10/28/20. Update resource areas and mitigation plantings. 01/19/21, revised dwelling footprint. Number 3, house plan, Premium Residence, 228 Waiting Place Road, Mashpee, Mass. Prepared by Rescom Architectural, Inc., dated January 20th, 2021. Proposed first floor plan. Proposed second floor plan. 1-elevation, 2-elevation, 3-elevation, and 4-elevation. Condition on all town comments read into the record, including but not limited to the Board of Health comments read into the record tonight.
Okay, do we need a variance on the front setback of half a foot?
No,
Okay,
no variance is required because it's a non-conforming condition currently.
very good. Okay, do we have a second?
Yes, second. May I make a comment, Mr. Chairman? Yeah. Forgot what my comment was. I wanted to be polite. But, okay, let's forget it. It just flew out of my head. Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let me start. Sharon, how do you vote on this?
Yes.
Okay, Ron, how do you vote on this?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Scott, how do you vote?
Yeah.
Jim Gould, how do you vote?
Yes, with no comments.
And I vote yes. So very good.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Good luck.
Yes, thank you all for your time. We much appreciate it. Have a good night. Stay safe.
Thank you. Okay, Scott is out on the next one, and Bill is back in. So Sharon, would you read the first new hearing?
18 Capstan Circle, owners Michael M. and Mary Adams Olskat, request a special permit under 174-17.1 of the zoning bylaws to raise a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling and replace it with a single-family dwelling on property located in an R3 zoning district, map 111, parcel 102, Mashpee, Mass.
Okay, very good. Who's presenting this?
Hello. This is Marion Rose of Singer and Singer. I've not yet been allowed into the meeting.
Okay, hold on, we'll let you in.
Thank you so much.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, are you going to do the presenting?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the floor is yours.
Perfect. Good evening. I'm Marion Rose. I'm an attorney at Singer and Singer, and I'm representing the LXX in their special permit request before you tonight. Also listening in are the project's architect, Chris Harris of SALT Architecture, and the engineer, David McNevich of Coastal Engineering. So we are hopeful by the end of this presentation, if you have any questions at all, that we'll be able to answer the questions that you have. Can you all hear me well?
Very good.
Okay, perfect. Great, okay. 18 Capstan Circle is in the R3 district. It is not a Pompanesett overlay district. There's existing single-family dwelling pre-existing as to lot size, to frontage, to the front setback, and to building coverage. The proposed dwelling for the site would be less non-conforming as to the front setback. It would be FEMA compliant, and it would be no more non-conforming as to building coverage than current conditions on the site. In this project, I just wanted to stop at the beginning and try to emphasize and frame two things. First, on this site, water is coming at you from many different directions. It's a very environmentally sensitive area. And because of that, there are setbacks, wetland setbacks coming from the north, coming from the south, and there's even a coastal buffer that bisects the existing dwelling itself. Because of that, we went directly to conservation first with this project to make sure that we would comply with their requirements, and we have gotten their approval. Secondly, because of the coastal bank bisecting the existing dwelling, it takes a lot that's roughly 11,000 square feet, and it turns it into the building cover, the upland on that lot is only about 2,200 square feet. So 20% of the 2,200 is about 554 square feet, I believe. So if a building was to be built there today, it would only be able to be 554 square feet. The existing building on site is 1,436 square feet of building coverage. And the proposed building is going to be 1,436 square feet, or the structures for the proposed project would be 1,436 square feet, not an inch more. Because from prior experience before the board, we do know that that's a red line. So the design here has been not to increase non-conforming building coverage. With that said, I wanted to say the following. You all are authorized to grant a special permit upon the determination that the proposed project is not substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure to the neighborhood, and that there's adequate land area to provide sufficient parking. I'd like to just focus on 4 points that I'd like to, there's a summary that's in the record that summarizes all of the points we have here. But the points I'd like to make are the following. First, there's no change in the coverage. I've underlined that 1,000 times. Second, the environmental benefits are real here. Because we're lifting the house, there's not going to be any living area in the flood zone. There's only an outside open air porch underneath the building and some storage area on the lower level. Conservation has approved this project. There are going to be mitigation plannings, and Board of Health is not reviewed because we have not applied for the changes in the septic yet, but you can see on the plan what the plan to do is removing septic tanks and the pump chambers from inside the resource area, and they will be moved out to the front northwest corner, outside of the resource area. So that will be a net benefit.
For a second, we'll have Sharon put up the, plot plan.
Sure.
Yep.
One thing that,
Yep, hang on. Oh, no.
that doesn't look like,
This one? This one?
Yep, no,
Oh,
the
oh.
one here.
Below it.
Okay, got it. We got it.
Okay, expand it if you would. Okay.
perfect. So the
Go ahead.
existing and are on the same plan. And you can see the existing dwellings, the proposed dwellings kind of rotate to the west. So it's further away from Capstan Circle. The front setback, if you measured it from the stoop under the existing, is, I think, let's double check this. But I think it's 15 feet. And the dwelling is about 21 feet away from Capstan Circle. The closest point on the proposed would be on the southeast corner of the front of the proposed dwelling, and that's 24 feet. So that's a net benefit as well. And in terms of, I heard a lot of discussion about this in the last proposal, doing something that's in keeping with the neighborhood. There are 4 letters of support for this project, from both immediate neighbors and from neighbors across the cove. The people who are across the cove would see the larger part of this house because it's on a slope, and so they would see the lower level that's open. They would see the first and second floor. And one of the neighbors who, I think the quote that I think describes this project best is from the Petersons at 112 Waiting Place Road. They say, it's very refreshing to see such a modest and thoughtful house, a home that's in scale to size with the smaller lots we have in the neighborhood. And at that point, we're open for questions. If you have any, happy to listen to any thoughts or concerns that you may have.
Okay, Sharon, if you would, move up to the zoning table in the top left of what's on the screen. The other way. There you go. Now slide it over.
You want it this way? Oh, this one.
There you go. A little more. Good. So this is what we're looking at for changes.
Right.
So we have no change in the lot size.
Right.
Obviously no change. The front setback. So rather than 21, we're moving it to 24, so it's getting better. The
Correct.
north setback. Okay. So required is 15, it's going to be 17. South side, required 15, it's going to be 20. Rear setback to MHW is 15, it's going to be 62. building height 35, 2.5 stories. Existing is 20, it's gonna be 34 underneath the 35. And it's less than 2.5 stories, or 2.5 stories, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and the lot coverage is staying exactly the same? So it's really kind of a no-brainer. Simple as that, so I've got no questions. Does anybody need this up, or should we take it down?
Down.
It's Ron, I do have well,
I can put it back up.
yeah, if you could I just have one question if I could.
Yep.
So if you can, not the table, but if you could go back to the actual building, up a little higher. So doesn't that depict that the existing building distance from wetlands, well, let me ask a question first. The dotted red line that goes very close to the patio, what is that dotted red line?
This one?
Right, exactly.
Mr. Chairman, this is David McNevett from Coastal Engineering.
Yeah, go ahead, thank you, David.
That red dashed line at the edge of the patio is 50 feet from the top of Coastal Bank at Spoongrove Cove. That was on there for the Conservation Commission.
So
Okay.
what is the distance from the existing house to either water or to to a resource area, the back left corner?
Back left corner.
Yes,
We showed that at 63 feet, I believe.
Okay. All right, I'm all set.
Okay. Darren, I think we can take that down. Okay, let's go around the rooms. Let's see, Scott is out, so we got Ron. How about George? Any questions, George? Comments, concerns?
Hey, thank you.
Bill?
The only thing I would have to say is, when Ron makes a motion, as he always does so well, when he asks to,
I'm gonna refuse.
when he conditions it on all town, comments, town, committee or, board comments, that he, emphasizes Board of Health.
Got it.
Darren, any questions, comments?
No, nope. I'm good.
Jim Gould?
Yes, the comment I wanted to make before, was that all petitioners should understand that, our motions are made in the affirmative. And that, they don't seem to understand that, and it's sort of confusing to most people. If we could explain that, it might help.
Bill, would
Would
you
you
like
like
to?
me to explain it before I make the motion?
Sure, go ahead. You want to go now?
Well, I'm just wondering, if you want, Jim, I mean, I'm not trying to step in the chairman, but if you want, prior to me making a motion, I can always explain that I'm making it an affirmative. If you choose to vote against it, then you vote against the motion.
That might be helpful for people sometimes, because the prior case in, Waiting Pond Road, that might have helped, the people understand what we were doing and how we were doing it. I don't know, it depends what everyone else thinks, I'm just one person. What do you guys think?
Sharon?
We haven't read in the comments yet.
Yeah, I know that, and we have to, there might be some abutters anyway calling in. So we haven't got to that yet. All right, anybody else have comments before we go to the written comments?
Mr. Chairman, if I were to be asked to read in a motion, do you want me to state the fact that it's in the affirmative?
Honestly, I'm not sure we have to. I think you already explained it.
Okay.
That should be good enough.
Yeah,
All right,
thank you.
why don't we read in the comments from, let's see, Board of Health?
Okay, Board of Health, 18 Capstan Circle. Septic is proposed to be upgraded with a denitrification system. Septic has capacity for 3 bedrooms. Proposed septic plan has not been submitted or approved. Floor plans are acceptable for 3 bedrooms. Soil absorption system must be inspected as it is intended to be used in place. A rodent inspection is required to be performed by an agent of the Board of Health, and an asbestos inspection must be performed by a private asbestos inspector as part of the demolition checklist. Demolition checklist shall be completed prior to demo permit sign-off.
Okay, and conservation?
Conservation, 18 Capstan Circle. This project has been approved by Conservation.
Okay, we've got some letters, haven't we?
Yes.
Let's see. I got one right in front of me I'll read. It's from, let's see, from Kathy Kramer regarding 18 Capstan special permit request. Dear Mashpee Zoning Board of Appeals, my husband and I live at 214 Waterway, next door to the, how do you pronounce it? How do you pronounce it?
Alexic?
Alexic. Thank you. Next door to the Alexic. We are thrilled that they are embarking on their house project. We totally support what they are doing. Best, Kathy Cohen Kramer, 214 Waterway. And Sharon, would you like to read in one from David Kramer?
David, yep, I've got that one. It's from David Kramer, and it's dated January 21st, and it was sent to Mary Ann. Dear Mashpee Zoning Board of Appeals, my wife and I live at 214 Waterway, next door to the Olsacks. They have shared their plans with us, and we support the house they are planning to build on the lot. They are very conscientious neighbors. Can't wait to see the completed project. David Kramer.
Okay, and we have one from 108 Waiting Place Road. And unfortunately, it printed on 2 sides, so I'll see what I can do here. The Mashpee Zoning Board of Appeals. And it says, we are neighbors of the Ocasek and are aware that they're building project at 18 Capstan Circle. We support their project and have no concerns. Thank you, Angela and Paul Squasher, 108 Waiting Place Road, Mashpee, Mass. Do we have any other letters at all?
Sharon had to take a quick break. I don't think there is any other letters.
Okay, is there anybody waiting on the phones?
Nope.
Okay. Any final comments before Ron makes a motion? Hey, Ron, if you would.
I would like to make a motion that we issue a special permit to Mary Adams Electric and Michael M. Electric of 18 Capstan Circle. Said special permit is under section 174.17.1 of the zoning bylaws to raise a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling and replace it with a single-family dwelling on property located in R3 zoning district, map 111, parcel 102, Mashpee, Mass, with the following conditions. 1, board has determined that the applicant meets all the conditions of special permit under Mass General Laws, sections 48, section 9. Site plan showing proposed new dwelling to replace existing dwelling. Project, Mary Adams Electric, 18 Capstan Circle, Mashpee, Mass. Scale as noted. Drawing file C19210-C. Drawing. Date 11/13/2020. Drawn by CEM/DAV. Checked by DJM. C2.1.1. 1 of 1 sheets. Project C19210.00. Prepared by Coastal Engineering Company. Signed by David J. McKenowitz, registered professional engineer, number 31493. Number 3, floor plan. Electric residence, Mashpee, Mass. A010. floor plan. Basement, existing floor plan. Basement, existing ground floor, existing A011. Roof plan existing, A012. Existing elevation, east. Existing elevation south, existing elevation west, existing elevation north, A100. Basement plan, first floor, A101. Second floor, roof plan, A200. Not for construction. Project relative elevations. Exterior elevations, east. Exterior elevations, west, A201. Exterior elevations, north. Exterior elevations, south. Prepared by Salt Architecture, North Falmouth, Mass., dated 12/2/20. Condition on all town comments, condition on all town department comments read into the record, including but not limited to the Board of Health comments read into the record tonight.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Jim Gould, seconds. George, you're gonna be in on this one, because Scott is out. So let me start with you. George, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Very good. Nice presentation.
Good job.
Okay, Sharon, let's see what we've got. I think we have the regular 5 board members on the next one. So if you would, the next new hearing, please.
23 Jeep Place, owners Hans E. and Sarah J. Briggs request a variance under 174-31 of the zoning bylaws to vary the rear setback, side setbacks, and lot coverage to allow for a detached garage on property located in an R3 zoning district and the Pompanesett Overlay District, map 118, parcel 111, Mashpee, Mass.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Kevin Corain representing Hans and Sarah Brings in connection with the application that is before you this evening. I would point out that we have not applied for a lot coverage variance, so I'm not quite sure how that got in the advertisement, but we're not looking for a lot coverage variance. So, basically this project is a garage. The property is situated as indicated at 23 G Place. The lot contains about 8,490 square feet. The lot is currently developed with a 4-bedroom, 2-story home consisting of just over 2,100 square feet. The lot has approximately 76 feet of frontage on G Place, and as such, the lot conforms to the current requirements in the Pompanesett Overlay District. The applicants are seeking to construct a single-car garage, 20 by 20, with storage above in the side and the rear yard. The proposed garage will not only allow for the sheltering of the vehicle, but will also provide additional storage space that will be needed, which is not currently available in the dwelling because, excuse me, a portion of the dwelling, under the dwelling is a crawl space. And as you'll note on the plan, if Sharon could bring up the plan, you can see that there is a 200-plus square foot shed on the lot, which provides storage, but that shed is being removed as a part of this application request. There you go. The property, as I said, is in the R3 zoning district and is impacted by the Pompanesett Overlay District, which, as I said, requires 6,000 square feet of lot area, a 25-foot setback, and side and rear yard setbacks of 15 feet. 25% is the allowed lot coverage in the zoning district, and currently the lot coverage on this lot is 27.2. The proposed garage, as you can see it in the rear corner of the lot, will be situated approximately 5 feet from both the rear and the side yard setback. As such, the garage does not meet the 15-foot setback criteria. So we've applied for variance relief. I would point out that the existing dwelling also sits within that side yard. The existing dwelling is 12.2 feet from the sidelines on one side and 9.6 feet on the other. And the shed sits 5 feet from the sideline and only 4.6 feet from the rear line. I would indicate initially that you'll see an outlined portion of the deck next to the house that is highlighted in that dark line. That portion of the deck is being removed so that we can bring the lot coverage into compliance with the 25% lot coverage criteria. So we're going from 27.2 down to the allowed 25% lot coverage when taking into consideration the construction of the proposed garage. As you know, the board can find several things as it relates to the grant of variance relief, and one of those items that it has to find is there a hardship due and owing to shape, soil conditions, topography of land, or structures, and I emphasize or structures as affecting this site and not generally other sites in this zoning district. So you take a look at that house that sits on that plan. Because of the way that house is oriented, I would suggest that the orientation of the structure on that lot and the shape of the structure on that lot as it fits on the lot is the criteria that the board could rely on in determining whether or not there is a hardship due and owing to a specific site condition. Now, when the Brings first came to me, the first thing I suggested to them was that, no, you don't really want to apply for variance relief. Why not apply for special permit relief? Because you have a non-conforming dwelling on the lot, and non-conforming dwellings can be altered or changed or expanded as the board sees fit. They did explore that possibility, but determined that the cost of retrofitting the interior of their house to make that garage work by attaching the garage to the house was just economically not feasible. So then I suggested, well, what about shifting it over behind the house? But as you can see on that plan, the septic system is situated behind that house, so you can't move it in that direction to comply with zoning criteria, and I'm not even sure, even if you were to move it, you could comply with the 15-foot rear yard setback criteria. So I do suggest that given the existing site conditions, the location of the building or structures, including the septic system on this lot, that hardship is and would be satisfied and could be relied upon by the board to connect with the grant of this relief. As I've indicated, the structure is already non-conforming, so technically, if one were able to easily retrofit or attach this garage to the house, you could build a garage on this lot within 5 feet of at least the sideline. And if you wanted to build a big enough garage within 5 feet of the rear sideline, if it were attached to the house and you were treating this as a special permit for an alteration or expansion. So we're really not asking for relief that might not otherwise be available except for the special conditions that exist on this lot, which I suggest create the hardship. And I would also point out the fact that we're bringing this site to the 25% lot coverage as compared to the 27.2 lot coverage that previously existed is a substantial improvement over what currently exists on the lot and consistent with zoning criteria in this overlay district. I would point out too that the abutters to this lot, immediate abutters, I believe, have submitted letters to the zoning board in support of the Brings proposal, and I would ask that the board consider that there are many other single-car garages situated in this Pompanesett zoning district. Nothing we're proposing here will have a substantial detriment to the public good or to the neighborhood as a whole, and I believe that the board, given that similar relief could have been granted under a special permit. The board can grant this relief without derogating from the intent of the zoning bylaw, and would therefore ask that the board act favorably upon this request.
Okay. Any questions on this plan before we take it down, anyone? Okay, Sharon, I guess we can take it down. All right. Scott, unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't need the plan. Just a couple questions. So that driveway is gonna be extended around the corner of the house to enter the garage?
Apparently so. I'm not sure it's gonna be paved, but it will.
Yeah, it just looks a little awkward to be back, there's an AC compressor there, so it just looks kinda awkward to get, not that it really matters, but it just looks awkward to get in and out of that garage, but I don't.
We're in a lot of options.
The other thing is, you said it's gonna be storage above, so does that mean unfinished space? Cause I'm looking at the plan and it shows one big finished, like a finished space, but are we approving this to be finished up there for storage, or is it unfinished, it needs no heat, no plumbing? It's kind of vague. It looks like it's gonna be a finished space eventually, but what they're going for now.
I don't see any bathrooms or anything of that nature in that.
No, there's nothing on there, it's just one big open space. But I mean, are we approving this to be an unfinished space? Storage to me is an unfinished space.
Well, that's up to the board to condition it if they feel that they're more comfortable conditioning it as unfinished, then certainly they could do that, but I really don't think it's necessarily up to the board to determine how the interior of a structure should be handled. It's not a zoning consideration, really. But I would leave that up to the board. It's gonna be storage, that's what I'm told. It's gonna be storage. The shed is gone, so that storage is being lost. The plan is that these folks are gonna, and when they retire, move into this building as their year-round residents, and with the crawl space underneath the principal residence, they just will not have the kind of storage space that they need. And I pointed out that their son is in school in marine biology, and I guess he has a lot of aquariums and other stuff that he utilizes in connection with what he does on a volunteer basis and in his studies, and a lot of that stuff would be stored up there as well.
Okay, let me comment that I'm really concerned about the setbacks on this. It's in Pompanesett Overlay District. We just heard neighbors talking about 228 Waiting Place. And we've been through this for years. The pushback we get on expanding, going close to the edges, and setting a precedent. I'm really concerned with the setbacks on this.
Well, I don't think you set any. No decision sets any precedent. Every decision is dealt with on its own merits. In this particular case, you have immediate abutters who are supporting this particular proposal. I mean, I didn't bring it up in the last hearing, but the abutters in the last hearing that complained, their house only sat 11 feet from their property line. So that property line, but as I say, the board could technically grant this similar relief for a special permit if we attach this garage to the building, and by reducing the lot coverage down to 20%, I think we're improving site conditions, not making them worse.
Okay, well, let me finish. First of all, I don't think there's a hardship because, number one, it's a square flat lot. I've been out there. And I think the hardship was self-imposed by whoever built this because they angled the house and that deck to look at the ocean. And I understand why they did it. So I'm very concerned about a precedent on this, granting something like this 5 feet from the two lot lines. I'm not for it at all, but that's just my opinion. So let's go around. Sharon?
Well, I don't want to open up a can of worms. I agree the setbacks are not good.
Okay, George?
I agree with you, John, what you said about Pompanesett, so even though this is a different situation, it's concerning.
Jim Gould?
I'll agree with you, Mr. Chairman.
Bill Blaisdell.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, there could be another, approach to getting this particular job done. I think Kevin alluded to it in his presentation. I think the applicant might want to reassess and come at this, in a different way. So, in bottom line, I agree with you, John.
Ron Bonzi.
I agree with you, Jonathan, with a caveat that, I think council has reminded us more than once that we've done things in the past and why we aren't doing them now. So, precedence does have some type of pressure on this board. We've heard it in the past, so I think that we need to pay attention. I understand precedence. We do have the right to take every individual filing on its own merits, but we all have heard more than once, we've done it in the past, so why aren't we doing it now? So I think that, I see your point, Jonathan, I get your point. If you want me to make a motion on the affirmative, though, I will need some facts, so just to let you know.
Okay, Scott.
I agree with what you said, Mr. Chairman, and if it is gonna be a one-car garage in storage, 20 feet is pretty big for a one-car garage, so I think you could make it smaller so you can meet your setbacks and still have a one-car garage in storage space.
I'm concerned about the setbacks, not the size of it.
Well, if you went smaller with the size, you could get your setbacks to work.
I don't know.
That's my point.
I'm not sure that's possible, but if the board would like me to, approach my client to see if the size of the garage can be reduced, I'm more than willing to go back to them and, see if they can come up with, some alternative to what's being proposed. I don't think it can be attached to the house. I think we ran into this, with substantial cost in terms of redesigning the entire interior of the house to accommodate a garage, is problematic. So I'm not sure that there is an alternative approach, but I am more than willing to approach the client to see if they can, take steps to reduce the size of the garage, increasing the setbacks, that may be applicable, and see where it goes, if that's something that the board is willing to consider.
One of the things you could do is, that's a huge deck. You could remove the deck and put in the garage.
Well, we're removing a substantial portion of that deck over as it is.
Okay, you could remove the whole thing. Because it's a self-imposed hardship. Saw the way it was built to face the water. It faces the water perfectly. But it's a square lot, and it's kitty corner to the lot. And if you haven't seen it, you gotta get down there.
Well, I have seen it, and that deck is only 9.9 feet from the sideline, so, you put a garage there, you're still gonna be looking for relief.
Well, I'm just throwing something out there.
All right. I'll be more than happy
Already-
to, so inclined,
It's already
more than happy to,
pre-existing. Is what, 9 feet?
yep.
So you could go to 9 feet, if you tucked it up front, where that deck was, and put it in there. Would it look great? Probably not, but, I don't know. Go ahead.
I'm more than happy to go back, to my client if the board is willing to give us that opportunity to see if there's a alternative approach that they might like to consider.
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, Kevin, that's the thing I was thinking. Maybe an approach under 174-17, where you're gonna change, alter, or extend a previously existing non-conforming, condition.
Mm-hmm. Well,
That might be an approach.
right, and I was aware of that approach, and I did bring, as I said, I brought that approach up, and it was deemed to be have a significant impact on the interior of the house. But I will revisit that if the board will give me the opportunity to go back and see what the client may be willing to do.
So would you like to continue this?
I would.
Okay, Mary Ann, what's a good date?
Kevin, how long do you think,
Huh?
how long do you think you need?
I would say the earliest it could probably be heard would be the end of February, maybe the first meeting in March, I don't, because if they have to do a complete redesign plan here, it's likely to take a little bit of time. So no sooner than the last meeting in February, I would say.
That one's pretty booked, isn't it?
Yeah, can we do March?
March
If that
what?
works for the board, that, we'll accommodate.
Perfect.
What's the date in March?
March 10th, I believe, hang on.
Wait a minute, it's March 10th.
Yeah, March 10th.
Hey, Ron, would you make a motion to continue this to March 10th?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion that we accept Sarah J. Briggs and Hans E. Briggs' request for an extension of their variance request under section 174.31. The extension will be until March 10th. That's at 23 Jeep Place.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, Jim seconds, and let's see. Scott, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
I vote yes. All right, good luck on that one, Kevin.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's see, I think everybody's on the next one, 10 Rock Island Road. So Sharon, would you read that?
10 Rock Island Road, owners Gerald M., Gerard M., and Linda S. Flaherty request a special permit under 174-17.1 of the zoning bylaws to raise and replace an existing non-conforming single-family residence on property located in an R3 zoning district, map 123, parcel 23, Mashpee, Mass.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Kevin Corain representing the Flaherty in connection with the raise and replace application that you have before you. And Sharon, maybe it makes sense to throw this plan up on the board as well.
Revised plan, January,
Yep.
this one, no, that's not it.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it?
That's it.
That's it.
That's it, okay.
I think that's it, yep. That plan prepared by BSS Design shows both the existing and proposed conditions on this lot and Rock Island, on Rock Island Road. The applicants are seeking to raise and replace under 174-17.1 the existing two-bedroom single-story residence. The non-conforming lot is a 6,000 square foot lot with 50 feet of frontage along Rock Island. They also have title to a 3,000 square foot lot that's across Rock Island Road, which is used primarily for parking. The lot is bordered, oddly enough, even though Huckleberry Lane doesn't exist. The lot is bordered by both Rock Island Road and Huckleberry Lane, and I've provided the board with photographs that they could pretty much see that there is no road lying between this property and the one next door. But as a result of the existence of Huckleberry Lane, there are certain setback criteria that make this dwelling non-conforming, as is the setback from Rock Island Road. Currently, this building was built back in the 1950s. As you know, there's a 40-foot front yard setback requirement from Rock Island and from Huckleberry. Currently, the building is about 4 feet from Rock Island and 4.6 feet from Huckleberry Lane. And it fails to meet the side yard setback on the other side, sitting at 10.9 feet as well. So the only conforming condition is that it conforms to the rear yard criteria, but it also exceeds the 20% lot coverage criteria of 25.45%. The Flahertys are seeking to replace this 70-year-old plus building with a two-story, two-bedroom dwelling. While the new structure does not eliminate all the nonconformities, they are being improved or eliminated in the redevelopment proposal. The front yard setback from Rock Island is being increased from 4 feet to 16.3 feet. That 16.3 feet, I'm suggesting to the board, is a conforming condition because it is the average of the two buildings that currently exist on either side of this particular dwelling. So we are taking that non-conforming condition and making it conforming. From Huckleberry, we're increasing it from 4.6 to 10 plus or minus feet. And moving the structure, the side yard setback is increased to 11 from the 10.9 on the other side of the lot. And we're slightly reducing the lot coverage from 25.45 to 25.43. The redevelopment plan also calls for the replacement of a cesspool with an up-to-date Title V system. By eliminating and/or improving these non-conforming conditions, I would suggest to the board that what we're proposing here is not substantially more detrimental than the existing conditions, as the new construction will also meet current building code criteria, given the other structure was built back in the 1950s. I believe that there are sufficient criteria for the board to determine that this new structure meets the requirements of 174-17.1 for a typical raise and replace project. And with that, I don't have anything further to add.
Okay, does anybody need this up, or can we take it down?
Take it down.
I guess, if I could just ask a question while it's up, please?
Sure.
Kevin, the existing house today, setback to the existing house number 12, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems to be 24.1 foot to the house, not the deck, the house.
Deck is part of the house, the deck is a structure, so it doesn't really.
Yeah, no, I get it, I understand that, so I was gonna go that next, the deck is 17.7, right?
10.9.
So, yeah, but that, I'm looking at that as, are you calling a landing a deck, or are you calling it, it looks almost like you're going to the 10.9, but it's almost more of a landing than it is a deck.
I don't know, the 10.9.
It says deck.
Says deck.
But it's pretty easy to write, if you look at the layout of it, because I'm understanding why it's 10.9, and that's why at 11 feet, it's only a 10 difference between to be built and built. But I'm saying the 10.9 may be to a staircase, et cetera, and my question is it more 17.7 and you're going down to 11?
No, you can't quite see it totally in the plan, but I think it is part of that deck.
Ron, I have it blown up on my computer, and it looks like the steps come off of Rock Island Road, 2 steps up to a deck. And it looks like lines like the steps, that's the way this engineer draws those lines. If you look at the back deck, there's all lines going through it. From the plan, it looks like that's a deck. There's a steps up to a landing, then landing up to the deck, and that deck is 10.9 off the lot line.
Yeah, I mean, you get my point, right?
I see the landing.
Yeah, it's the same idea as like that other one that, waiting place.
Exactly.
That was
I mean,
exactly the
nine
step. This
takes
looks like
the
a deck,
11
not a landing.
area at a 10. But if you go from 17.7 down to 11, that's a problem. And I think we need to know for sure.
If you look at one of those photographs that I provided, I think it looks more than it.
If we have
It
photographs.
really looks like a deck to me.
Sharon, can you bring up any of the photos?
Oops, hang on.
That'll answer everything.
Did we have Rock Island photos?
Oh, they're all back up there, they're all
Should be
together.
with Kevin's, whole application, the package he does.
This one?
No,
No, I don't see them. Maybe it's that next one.
Oh,
Next
oh,
one.
I know what it is. He had it, he
This
has
is,
it a weird,
written remarks, that one.
is it this one here? Where is it?
It'll say written remarks.
It has a weird name, because he did it from a scan from his,
Oh, no, that's not it.
it's not it?
No, that was the other one. It should say written remarks.
It's not one of these?
Is that it?
There you go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just found it on my
Yeah,
computer.
if you look at that, it's tough to tell, but that's the photo there that I think it shows you, the deck and then a landing down below. It's tough to see in that photo, but that would be the one that,
Is this the one
that
we're
shows
looking
that.
at?
And I think Tom Bunker, who drew the plan, has had it come back to bite him a couple of times relative to these landings. And so he did clearly indicate that it's deck.
So, Kevin,
The
I
one
guess
with the
one,
awnings on the window?
understand the question. So you believe the setback that exists today on that sideline is 10 foot 9 inches, no, 10.9.
Sharon, scroll down more.
This one?
The other way. The other way.
Yeah.
Other way. Right there.
There's a landing.
Looks like a looks like a not stairs, looks like a deck to me.
A
It's
deck,
a platform. That looks like that doesn't look like stairs to me. It looks like part of the deck, like a deck.
Yeah.
I know it's low, but it's a deck.
No, behind,
If that was built today, it would need footings.
behind
We
the
asked the
shrub.
building inspector, David, what his opinion is.
Is that where we're looking? I didn't think that was where we're looking.
yeah, that's the,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that's
it.
part of it. You're looking at it, this is a front view and the other view is from the back.
Correct.
Yeah, that's it. I'm familiar with the property.
That's my belief, Ron, that it is 10.9.
Okay, Ron, we can always condition it,
Right.
so maybe we should do that anyway to verify the actual
Gotcha.
from the side. Okay, I've got no issues whatsoever. Sharon?
No,
Scott, just what you talked about?
Nope, I'm good.
George?
No issues.
Jim Gould?
No,
Bill?
No issues.
Ron?
All set.
Yeah, just, other than just to verify
Right.
the question there as to what that setback is on the, whatever side it is, the right side, which would be
I'll
the
just-
south
Yep.
side, I guess.
The side abutting lot 12.
Yeah, and I think it's probably the south side also. In any event, Sharon, would you read in some comments?
all right, Board of Health. 10 Rock Island Road. The property has 2 bedrooms and is restricted to 2 bedrooms. The architectural floor plans are incorrect. The septic design has not been submitted for review or approval. A rodent control inspection is required to be performed by an agent of the Board of Health, and an asbestos inspection must be performed by a private asbestos inspector as part of the demolition checklist. Floor plans of the proposed floor plan have not been provided. He's repeating himself. Demolition checklist shall be completed prior to demo permit sign-off. Conservation property is not within wetlands jurisdiction.
Okay, anybody holding on the phones?
Nope.
All right, Ron, would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we issue a special permit to Linda S. Flaherty and Gerard M. Flaherty of 10 Rock Island Road. Said special permit is under section 174-17, of the zoning bylaw, to raise and replace existing non-conforming single-family residence on property located in R3 zoning district, map 123, parcel 23, Mashpee, Mass. With the following conditions. 1, Board has determined the applicant meets all the conditions of special permit under Mass General Law 48, Section 9. 2, plot plan, proposed house reconstruction, 10 Rock Island Road, Mashpee, Mass., prepared for Gerald and Linda Flaherty. Scale 1 inch equals 20 feet. Date, November 24th, 2020. Drawn by R.A.R., checked by J.E.R. Job number 20100, titled Plot Plan, Proposed House and SSDF Details. Drawing number B28-06, prepared by BSS Design and Engineering, signed by Thomas J. Bunker, Professional Land Surveyor number 326533. House plan, Flaherty Residence, 10 Rock Island Road, Mashpee, Mass, prepared by K. Marshall Works Design. A1, front and rear elevations. A2, front and right. A2, rear and left elevations. Dated November 16th, 2020. Condition on all town department comments read into the record, including but not limited to Board of Health comments read into the record tonight. Also, the applicant must seek and obtain approval from the town zoning enforcement officer that the depicted 10.9 feet on the existing condition plan is correct. And that is 10.9 feet to lot number 12. I believe it's the southerly side, but it is from the existing home to lot number 12, and it's depicted at 10.9 feet.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, Jim seconds. Okay, Scott, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Well done, Kevin.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Sharon, would you read the next new hearing? Next two of them.
23 Monomoskoye Road West, owners Sean B. Burke and Catherine M. Burke, trustees, request a special permit under 174-25H7 of the zoning bylaws to allow for the construction of a stairs and platform for use in connection with a ramp and float complex on property located in an R3 zoning district, map 114, parcel 8, Mashpee, Mass. 23 Monomoskoye Road West, owner Sean B. Burke and Catherine M. Burke, trustees, request a variance under 174-31 of the zoning bylaws to vary the rear and front setbacks to allow for construction of a platform and stairs for a float complex on property located in an R3 zoning district, map 114, parcel 8, Mashpee, Mass.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Kevin Corain, representing the Burkes in connection with this proposal. And it might be helpful, Sharon, if you could put up the plan that we have going here, prepared by Cape and Islands Engineering.
What number?
23. Monomoskoye Road West.
Tiny.
Okay.
Okay. This is very similar to the McCartney proposal that the board had dealt with a month or two ago in connection with the construction of stairs and a platform on property that is not used primarily as a single-family residence. If the board recalls, the bylaw was adopted allowing for this type of a use to be constructed on a lot where it had been previously treated as an accessory use to a principal residence. The Burkes own the property that is across Monomoskoye Road that you see on this plan, as well as the lot upon which they seek to locate this platform and stairs. They have been told by the harbor master they have a mooring currently out in, I think it's is that Hamlin Pond, I believe?
Yes.
So they have a mooring out in Hamlin Pond, and they're going to replace that mooring with a property over the coastal bank down to the beach in that area. But this platform and stairs will allow them to traverse the coastal bank, and there will be a ramp that will attach to the platform at the top of the stairs, and then will rest on the bottom anchored float in Hamlet Pond, so that they'll be able to traverse the bank and the beach without having to climb down that coastal bank. As I said, this is a use that is permitted under the bylaw upon the grant of special permit relief, and that's section 174-25H7. It's sort of unusual in these cases in some respects because you really have to pretty much be on or near a rear property line in order to access a waterway that is adjacent to the property if you're proposing a connection to a pier and a float complex. But this is not a pier complex. This is simply the float that'll be anchored. So we have requested relief from the rear lot line, even though I'm not quite sure what the rear lot line necessarily is. I think it's typically treated as mean high water. I think I treated it maybe the coastal bank and asked for relief based upon the coastal bank. But if mean high water is the rear lot line, then we're looking for variance relief of some 4 feet, because I think we're like 11 feet. That platform will be 11 or so feet from that mean high water line. We've also asked for variance relief from Child's Road. Now, Child's Road basically doesn't exist. It's a road that is shown on paper, and it goes to nowhere but the pond, and basically the improved surface of that road ends at Monomoskoye West. And if you move the plan up a little bit, you might be able to see that there's improved Monomoskoye Road West basically is the driveway to the Burke House. So there is nothing beyond that improved area in terms of a roadway, but the platform does sit, I think, some 21 feet or some 22 feet off that road, which technically could be construed to be a front yard, even though you don't have a house on the lot. So in order to take a belt and suspenders approach, I did apply for variance relief from the front yard at Child's Road and from the rear yard where we are within 11 feet of mean high water. So the purpose of having it located there is that it shortens the amount of bank that has to be traversed, which is an improvement relative to impact on the coastal bank. That's an area where the less disturbance will have to occur in terms of both construction and use. And I suggest the topographical features of the lot contributed to its location in that particular area, which is why we needed the setback variance from the non-existent Child's Road. I would also point out that we do have a bylaw which talks about the 50-foot setback from water and wetland resource areas, but these types of structures are specifically excluded from that 50-foot setback criteria. So it might be worth considering whether or not they should be even applied in terms of a rear yard setback when we're dealing with these types of facilities. So I don't have anything further to add. I do know that Mary Ann forwarded to me an email today that she had gotten from the conservation agent. I believe there's maybe a difference of opinion between the conservation agent and the harbor master. So I would suggest to the board, the Conservation Commission did approve this project, and its approval was subject to being able to get the appropriate approval or permit for the bottom anchored float from the harbor master. So I would suggest to the board that this board, if it is inclined to grant the relief that we are seeking, that they condition this permit on us similarly as did the Conservation Commission, that it is conditioned upon obtaining the bottom anchored float, from the, harbor master.
Okay, does anybody need this up still, or should we take it down?
I do have a question, Mr. Chairman, if I may. It might require that plan. Hey, Kevin, so if I were to be asked to make a motion, rear yard setback, what's required, 15?
That's correct.
What's shown?
I believe it's 11 feet to mean high water.
So you're asking for a
I
four relief?
use my architectural, you can see it's 11 feet on the plan to mean high water, so we'd be looking for a 4-foot variance.
4 foot. So front yard setback, what's required?
40 feet is required, and I believe we're showing 18, on the plan, so we need a 22-foot variance.
Thank you very much.
32, right? What'd you say, 40 or 50?
40.
40 is the setback
Okay.
from Kyle's Road.
Got it. Okay. Anything else to keep this up? Nope. Okay. Kevin, I was reading through your comments. I think you might have, Mary Ann might have sent my question to you, because I sent it to Evan. And on, let's see, page 3 of your comments, under applicable zoning, at the end of the first paragraph, you say, "No sanitary facilities and coverage and setbacks can be met or approved."
Right.
So I went and looked at the bylaw, which, as you said, was what? 174-25H7?
Yep.
And if I read the bylaw, I go, I don't know, maybe 2/3 of the way down, it's all applicable setbacks and lot coverage requirements are met and approved, not or approved. So I sent that information and my question to Evan, the town planner, and said, what's up with that? Is it and or or? There's a big difference. And the bylaw says and. So I asked him the question, and he writes back and he says, let's see, this is dated Saturday, January 23rd. Hi, John. I would most certainly want to look at the language as it was approved at the 1993 town meeting where it was added. The sentence structure, as written, seems odd and duplicative. It would be the first case of, and I can't pronounce this word, scandamus in the bylaw. I should look at the 1993 approval to determine if the intent was to allow the Board of Appeals via the special permit process the discretion to determine an alternate schedule of dimensional criteria. With that being said, I'm interpreting as written. I do not believe this would grant the authority to the board to allow for lesser lot coverage requirements without a variance, and that the structure cannot exceed the maximum lot coverage requirement of the applicable zoning district. So I would agree with your interpretation pending further review of this article as approved at town meeting. Thanks, Evan. So I have not heard back from him because he is out at present, so.
And he's referencing lot coverage. I haven't requested any lot coverage relief.
I understand that, but the bylaw says, let me read it again. All applicable setbacks and lot coverage requirements are met and approved.
Okay,
I don't have
so,
a problem with this, but the bylaw tells me something different.
Yeah. Well, I guess the question is, if the board grants a variance, is the board approving it?
You gotta meet the setbacks is what it's saying.
But I'm saying that the board
It's saying
can grant,
either or, it's saying and.
well, I mean, I suppose we could relocate it if the board feels that it has to be relocated. I mean, I think it's an exercise of futility myself. I mean, Child's Road doesn't exist. If this were a platform or stairs that were providing access or egress from a dwelling, we wouldn't need to meet a setback requirement because of the fact that you don't need it, and 4x4 decks providing access or egress don't require us to meet a setback criteria. So, I mean, I can go back to my client and tell them that it has to be moved, but I don't know how you deal with a rear yard when you're dealing with a structure that's providing you access to the water.
I don't disagree with you. I think there's an issue here, and honestly, I don't have a problem with it, but the bylaw does.
Well, as I said, the bylaws provide various things, and the bylaws also afford the zoning board of appeals an opportunity to grant variance relief from the bylaw. So what we are asking for here is the board to grant a variance, which is technically allowing the board to grant relief that is not relief allowed under the bylaw.
Okay, well, according to this, my interpretation of it is you have to meet all setbacks. And I don't know how you could meet the setbacks from the wetlands, which is 50 feet. And the rear lot line, I'm
Claims
not
that 50-foot setback does not apply. That does not apply. If you read that bylaw, it specifically says, any building or structure exclusive of fixed or floating piers, wharfs, docks, bridges, or boardwalks there was an exclusion, if my memory serves me correctly.
Okay, well,
Exclusive.
you still got the
Exclusive
11
of
feet
fixed
from the
piers.
rear lot line.
It says exclusive of fixed piers, boardwalks, shall be set back 50 feet. So I would say that this would be a structure that would be one of those exclusive structures that would not have to meet the 50-foot setback.
Okay. Again, you got the 11 feet on the back line. I don't know how that can happen. And I don't disagree with you. I think it's crazy the way it's written.
Well, I mean, I could suggest that they move that platform back 4 feet to 15 feet, and I think we comply.
How are you gonna put the stairs in? That's a structure.
I would say that it's akin to a boardwalk that is excluded from that 50-foot bylaw.
I don't agree.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion, but I certainly think that it would qualify as one of those types of facilities, docks, bridges, or boardwalks. I mean, you have stairs on bridges, you have stairs on boardwalks, so I would suggest that would be excluded from that bylaw, the 50-foot bylaw.
Well, again, I'm gonna go with what Evan said. He wants to check it out. So I don't know if you wanna continue this or what, but.
Well, I haven't seen what Evan said, so it's tough for me to comment on what he said, but I'd be more than happy to extend, to give Evan the opportunity to look at it, but I do believe that the 50-foot setback doesn't apply. And if they have to relocate this thing so it meets the 22-foot setback, move it 22 feet further away from the street, and 4 feet away from mean high water, then I can suggest that they do that, assuming they can get the Conservation Commission to allow them to amend their plan. The objective was to have the least impact as possible, but if the board feels that it's necessary that it be moved, then I will recommend that they move it so that they don't need the variance relief from the front yard or the rear yard. And I don't believe that they need it from the 50 feet.
Okay, you're probably from the mean high water.
Unless the board grants a variance, I agree.
But it says you've gotta meet the setback. Doesn't say either or.
So I moved the platform back 4 feet, and I'm 15 feet from mean high water.
How do you put the steps in?
The steps is part of the boardwalk. And the steps are beyond the 15 feet. The steps are beyond the 15 feet.
The steps are going down to the water, down the
No,
bank.
they're not. The steps are leading up to the platform, and there is a ramp from the platform, a removable ramp that runs from the platform to the bottom anchored float. That ramp is not a structure, it's movable, and it wouldn't qualify.
Okay. So you're saying that the steps are not a structure?
No, I'm saying the steps are a structure, but those steps are on the Monomoskoye Road side of the platform.
Okay, well, how do you get down that bank?
You're gonna have a ramp, a movable ramp from,
Okay, the ramp is a structure, isn't it?
no.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
It's a movable ramp that just sits on top of the platform and sits on top of the bottom anchored deck. It's not affixed to anything.
Okay, I'm not sure I agree with that.
Well, again, you know,
So let me suggest
it's
we
not
have,
at a fixed location on the ground, and that's the definition of a structure.
so let me,
Materials assembled at a fixed location on the ground. So I don't think the ramp would qualify as a structure. You
Okay.
pull it in the winter, just like you pull in the bottom anchored float. Doesn't have piers stuck in the ground that it connects to. Just sits on top of the float.
all right, anybody have comments? Sharon?
Well, I'm not gonna vote on this one, but I would want this all cleared up before I voted if I was voting on it.
George?
I agree with Sharon.
Jim Gould?
Can't help but agree with Sharon.
Bill?
Yeah, I think maybe some clarification, if Evan is doing some more research or whatever he's doing. And maybe give Kevin some time to talk to his, client. I don't have a problem with this whole thing, but,
So do I. I didn't make this bylaw. And I agree with you, Kevin. It's
That's why
stupid.
they give you the discretion to grant variances.
I don't know. Ron?
I think we need clarity, there's no question, actually.
Scott? Can't hear you, Scott.
Sorry, keep muting. I agree that we need clarity. My opinion as one person is if the part of the ramp is removable, just like the float, I don't think it's a structure, if you're removing it, taking it in and out every year. But that's just,
I agree with Scott.
I can't help that. I agree with that.
but a little clarity would help us if we can just continue it, get a little clarity on it.
Yeah. Dave, when you get a chance, I'll have you check it out and weigh in on it.
I want you to look at it.
Well, I mean, the structure, the stairs are going away from the rear setback. And so that, the question is whether they move it 4 feet and away from the street. This part of this, I think the ramp is not a part of the structure. The structure is the platform and the stairs itself. That's what I'm concerned with the building department. That's, you need to get a permit for the stairs and the platform.
Okay. So, any other final comments?
guess we'll give Evan the opportunity to weigh in. And in the meantime, I'll talk to my clients to see if they want to avoid the issue in its entirety and see if it can be moved 22 feet further inland from the non-existent Childs Road and 4 feet further back from mean high water.
If they're willing to do that, Kevin, do you even have to come back?
What's that?
If they're willing to do that, are you even having to come back?
Probably not, unless assuming the board is not inclined to agree with Jonathan that the ramp is a part of the structure.
Okay, well, I'll go with the majority on that regarding the ramp.
Okay. I will go back and see if they can modify the plan so no variance is required. But I suspect that may require them to go back to conservation to amend their order of conditions.
Well, while you're there, maybe you can straighten out the potential conflict with the harbor master and conservation.
Well, that's up to the harbor master and the conservation agent. That's not up to me. I believe the harbor master has indicated he will issue that bottom anchored slope.
Okay. All right, so should we continue this to a certain date?
Makes sense.
Mary Ann? What's available?
You wanna do March 10th, Kevin?
Might as well. I guess I got another one or two on that night.
Yep.
Hey,
Okay.
Ron, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, so would that be the variance and the special permit, I presume, March 10th?
Yep.
Both of them.
All right, I would like to make a motion that we accept the applicants of 23 Monument Square Road, Kathleen M. and Sean B. Burke, request to extend their variance under section 17431, will request for a variance application under section 17431 until March 10th.
I'll second it.
Okay, Jim seconds. Let's see. Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ron, how do you vote?
Yes.
You vote? Tim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Scott, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay. So did you
Thank you.
vote? Did you do?
I have to do the special permit now.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the applicants Kathleen M. and Sean B. Burke's request for a special permit under section 17425, request for an extension until March 10th, be approved at 23 Monument Square Road West.
Second.
Okay, Jim Gould seconds. Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Maybe you can straighten this out for us, Kevin.
What's that?
Maybe you could straighten this out for us.
I think the bylaw could use some work, quite frankly, because I don't think the bylaw in these circumstances. I mean, I can see setbacks from front yards because it serves the purpose in terms of uniformity in the district, impeding people's views on the street. But when you're dealing with a structure of this nature, it doesn't seem to me that it should even really apply. But you know, that's something that Evan can probably take up if he proposes some new bylaws.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
Good luck on that. All right. Sharon, would you read the next and last new hearing?
There are two, well, it's two motions.
With 'em.
Yeah. 31 Wheelhouse Lane and 5 Waterline Drive North. Owners Jack Foster and Allison Poole Foster and New Seabury Properties LLC request a special permit under 174-25 H7 of the zoning bylaws to allow for the construction of stairs and a platform for use in connection with a ramp and float complex on property located in a R3 zoning district and Little Neck Bay District map 120, parcel 165 and 71, Mashpee, Mass. 31 Wheelhouse Lane and 5 Waterline Drive, North, owners Jack Foster and Allison Poole Foster and New Seabury Properties LLC request a variance under 174-31 of the zoning bylaws to vary the rear setbacks to allow for the construction of a stairs and platform float complex on property located in an R3 zoning district in Little Neck Bay District, map 120, parcel 165 and 171, Mashpee, Mass.
Okay, I believe we have a letter from Attorney Corain.
Okay, it's dated January 26th, and it is in regards to this property. Dear Mr. Furbish, as you know, my office represents the above referenced applicants, Jack Foster and Allison Poole Foster. The petitions are on the property situated at 31 Wheelhouse Lane and 5 Waterline Drive North, Mashpee, Massachusetts. The public hearing was scheduled for Wednesday, January 27th, and is hereby requested that the hearing be continued until February 24th. Thank you for your anticipation of your cooperation in this regard. Very truly yours, Kevin M. Corain.
Right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Jim, how do you vote?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay, Kevin?
Okay,
Everything continued.
thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Well done, Kevin.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, Sharon, would you read the first and only other business?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of January 13th, 2021.
Anybody second? All right, Jim Gould seconds. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous. Okay, I don't have any additional topics. Does anybody else?
Nope.
Okay, let's see. Scott, would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
I can second that one with glee.
All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, good night. Great job.
Night.